Now let's see how we can use Git in the Visual Studio Code. I've prepared a small project right here. It contains an index.html file, which you can see right here, where we have only the header and the h1 tag in it. We have a style CSS file with some basic styles in it. All what's interesting about it is this background image property, where you can see we use a JPEG file to be in the background of our header. We have a simple JavaScript file right here. If you do not know JavaScript, don't worry. It's just a simple instruction that is supposed to switch our image on our website from the balloon image to the bee image, and the title from the balloon to a bee. As you can see, I have prepared two JPEG files as well in my project. The one with the balloons and the one with the bee. So let's go to index.html file. Let's open it with the live server. It's an extension to Visual Studio Code that allows us to get live preview of our project in a browser. And our project looks more or less like this. And what it's supposed to be doing is to switch the picture and the title after clicking it. So let's click it. And you can see that something's wrong because our website is blank at the moment. When we click it once again, we'll go back to the balloon picture and the balloon title. And we want our bee title and our bee picture when we click it. So we are going to fix it in our Visual Studio Code while working with Git. So first of all, let's open our terminal. You can open it by clicking this terminal option right here and new terminal. Or as you can see, you have a shortcut right here, which is Ctrl, Shift, and the tilde key on our keyboard. So let's do this. And we can see we have our terminal open. We can see right here we got PowerShell. It will be fine for our project, but as you know, you may change it to Git Bash, for example. As you can see right here, we are already in our working directory, so we are ready to initialize our repository. So as you know, we can type git init in our terminal, but as you may guess, in Visual Studio Code, we have our graphical user interface, and in this video, I want to focus on that feature. If you have Git installed on your computer, in Visual Studio Code, you will see this icon right here. Icon with the branches and the title source control. Let's click this icon, and this is our Git icon. When you click it, you see this information right here. We have the info that the folder currently open doesn't have a Git repository. So as you can see, we can initialize a repository, or we can publish it to GitHub, which we will get to later on. So let's initialize our repository by clicking this button. And now you can see that our repository is initialized. You can see the differences already. We have our files marked on green with the capital U letter next to those files. And these capital U letters means that our files are untracked. If we want to see if our repository is initialized, we can also place git status in our PowerShell, and we can see everything I said before. Our repo is initialized, we are on branch master, we have no commits yet, and we have untracked files in our repository, which are all those files, which we can see exactly right here. Now, even if we change something in our HTML file, for example, it doesn't matter, we can see that nothing changed because all these files are still untracked. Let's delete these changes. So now what we are supposed to do is to add these files to the staging area. As you know, we could use the git add command in the terminal, but we have also our graphical interface, and all we need to do now is to click this plus sign where we can see stage changes when we hover on it. So we can add each file separately, or we can go to this overlap changes, and when we hover on the plus sign next to it, we can see the option stage all changes. So when we click it, we can see all our files are now added, which you can see that the capital U letter was switched to the capital A letter, which means that now our files are added to the staging area. Now what we need to do is to do a commit. As you may know, we can use a git commit command, or we have this message input. So all we need to do is to click it, type our commit message, which would be initial commit. And when we hit enter or click this check sign with the commit tooltip, we will simply do a commit. So let's do this. Let's click it. And voila, here you can see the effect. We have no changes. So that means we have no changes in our staging area. We did a commit and everything works fine. We can also see it by typing git status once again. And we can see the commit is done. We are on branch master. We have nothing to commit and our working tree is clean. We can also check it by typing git log with one line flag. Not online, but one line. Exactly like this. And we can see our commit right here. We can see the short hash number. We can see that our head indicator is on a branch master. And our commit message was initial commit. Let's check our project in the browser once again. And let's say we want to change this font right here, because it's now the basic Arial font. So let's do it. All we need to do is to go to Google Fonts. Let's get the Roboto font. Without any complication, all we want is our regular style right here. Let's select this style. And all we need to do is to copy this link tag right here. Let's copy it. Let's paste it to our project right here, above our custom styles, like this. Let's save it. And you can already see the difference. We have the indicator that something happened, something was added to our index.html file. You can also see the M letter right here, which means that our file was modified. But let's go back to our Google Fonts once again, and let's copy this quote right here to place it in our CSS file. Let's go to our style CSS file. We have our H1 CSS rule with the font family Arial. Let's change it. And now you can see the blue indicator, which means that we didn't add a new line to our document, but we modified the existing line. Let's save the changes. And you can see that style CSS file is also modified right now. Let's see if the changes worked in our project. We don't need this Google Fonts anymore. And we can see the font is changed right now. Let's go to our Visual Studio Code. I will close those pictures from here because we don't need it. And I want to show you something now. We have modified our two files. So now when you go to the Git overlap right here and click, for example, on index.html file, you can see clearly the differences between those files. Now what you can see here is the indicator that this is a file from our working tree. So from our working directory. So what we can see right here is a comparison of the two versions of the same file, one from our staging area and one from our working tree, which is our working directory. And you can exactly see what has been changed in this file, in this case from the last commit, because we didn't add any changes to the staging area from the last commit. It's the same as if we used the git add command in a terminal, but in the graphical interface is clearly more visible. Now let's close this. Let's add this file to the staging area by clicking this plus sign. And let's open it once again. And up here you can see the other indicator. Now it's not the working tree, but an index, which is our staging area. So now we can see the comparison of the versions of this file, when this version on the left is from the last commit, and this version on the right is the version in our staging area right now. Now let's close this. Let's go to our index.html file. Let's make some changes. Save these changes. And now we can see we have two versions of the same file. One in our working directory, which is our working tree, and one in the staging area. And when we click the one from our working directory, you can see the changes between the file that is in our working tree and our staging area. At this point, you see that this custom file was added when we add this file to the staging area. So this is not a modification at this point, but this is the balloon title. And when we close this and we open the file version from our staging area, which is our index, which you can see right here, we don't even have this modification here with our title. We only have this one with our custom font, because this comparison is between the file from the last commit and the one staged in the staging area right now. I show you this so you can always check in easy way what differences you have in your project files, because as you may know, Git can store one file in many different states and areas at the same time, and it might be a little bit confusing for us, especially at the beginning of work with Git. So let's go back to our project. Let's close this. Let's place Git status once again. And you can see clearly it's the same thing as we can see in our graphical interface. We have one file modified in the staging area, which we can see exactly right here. And the two files in our working directory also modified, which we can see exactly right here. Let's clear this console. Now we don't want these changes in our working directory, so we can simply discard these changes with this icon right here. So let's do it. And we will get the version of this file from our staging area, which we staged a moment ago. As you can see, it's not the version from the last commit, because we can see our custom font right here. We just discarded the changes related to this h1 tag. So now let's add to the staging area our style CSS file as well. Now two files are staged. In index.html file, we imported the custom file, the custom font, which is Roboto. And in our CSS file, we switched the font family to Roboto from Arial font. So now let's do a commit. All we need to press this input with the message and type our commit message. Import Roboto font from Google Fonts and change font family to Roboto. I think it's gonna be okay. And what's interesting, you can see the info that we have 19 characters over 50 in current line. So it's a reminder about I was telling you in the theory that our single line shouldn't be too long to be displayed correctly. So the interface informs us about it as well. We can see now we have 24 characters. So we should just keep that in mind to keep our lines not too long. Now, I said before that you can hit enter to commit, but that's not actually true, because in the graphical interface, when you hit enter, you just go to a new line. So if you want to add another line to our commit message, remember that the second line should be empty, and you can place the text in the other line however you want. But let's just keep this one line in our commit. So to do a commit in the Git interface, we have to click on this check sign right here. We can see a tooltip commit. Let's press it. And we can see that everything is fine. Our staging area is cleared. We have no changes in it. And our commit has been done. We can also check it by typing git status, which you can see everything is fine. We can place git log one line, and you can see our commit, our initial commit, and our second commit. So it works just like in the command line. Let's clear our console. Let's go back to our project. And as I said before, after clicking it, we want a new picture and a new title. And as we can see, it's not working exactly how we would like it to work. So let's fix this. Let's go to our main.js file. As I said, it's a simple function that is supposed to switch our background pictures and the content of our h1 tag. And what is wrong with this instruction is just this name of the file, which we can see B with the 3 E letters in it, where there's supposed to be just a B with 2 E letters. So let's change this. Also, we have something of a typo right here in the title. Let's change this as well. We can already see the indicator that something was modified in our file. That's the blue indicator. That existing line was modified. If we wanted to add a new line, we would see the green indicator, which means that new lines were added to our file. But we don't want to use this. All we wanted to do is to change this path to our second picture and the title of our second picture. Let's save these changes. Let's open our project once again. Let's find out if it works. And we can see it works perfectly fine. When we click it, the image is changed and we have a proper title for it. We have a balloon, a bee, and again a balloon. As I said, it's a simple project, but for our exercise, it's just fine. Now we can see that our main.js file is modified. As you know, we could add it to the staging area and then do a commit. But as you may know already, we can do a commit with adding the file to the staging area at the same time. To do that in the command line, we would use this command, git commit with the A flag. As you know, it works only with the tracked files, with the files that are already tracked by Git in our repository. It's not a problem because we have all our files tracked by now, but we can do the same thing in our user interface just by typing the commit message and clicking this check icon to do a commit. Then our files will be added to the staging area automatically and committed. So let's do this. Correct the path to the image and fix. It should be in the present simple. Let's not forget about it. Correct the path to the image and fix the title for the second image. That should be it. Let's commit. And now if we click it, we can see everything worked fine. We have our changes committed and our staging area cleared. As we know, we can check it in the terminal. Git status, everything's fine. Git log, everything's fine as well. We see all our commits, the newest one right here. So everything works how it should. Let's go to our index.html file and let's try doing something else. Let's go to our files overlap and let's create a new folder. Let's call it docs. We can see that nothing changed from the Git perspective, but let's open this folder and let's create a new file in this folder. New file, let's call it, for example, authors.txt. So let's say we created a folder docs where we want to put some sort of a documentation of our project, and we have a text document in it with the info about the authors. Now, as you can see, as long as this folder was empty, we didn't see any differences. But now, when it has a file in it, Git marked on green the whole folder with this file inside it as untracked. So let's create a git ignore file in our main catalog. New file dot git ignore. Let's hit enter. And let's add our folder in this file to be ignored by Git. Let's have a comment. Let's say it's a documentation. And let's add this folder. / and docs. Let's save it. And you can already see the difference in our interface. This whole folder with the file inside it is no longer taken into account by Git. And you can even see it's faded. So it's an indicator that it's ignored, in a difference to our tracked files, which are not modified, or untracked files, which are marked in green in our interface. We could also add git ignore file to be ignored, but we usually want this particular file to be tracked by Git. Let's go to our Git overlap. You can see by this icon how many changes we got. There's one change. As you may know, we can add this file to the staging area by pressing this plus sign, but there's no problem to work with the terminal as well. So let's use git add command with the dot, which will add all the files to the staging area we got. Let's hit enter. And you can see it worked perfectly well. So you can switch between the user interface and the terminal with no problem. So let's do a commit, also in the terminal. With the commit message, create git ignore and add the docs folder. Let's hit enter. We can see in the terminal everything worked perfectly fine. And we can also see it as well in our interface, in our Git overlap, where we can see no changes to the staging area, as well as with the files overlap, where we can see our tracked unmodified files and our faded ignored docs folder with authors.txt file in it. Let's check our Git status. Everything's fine. Let's check our Git log with one line flag. Everything fine as well. We can see our newest commit right here. So as you can see, we can work with Git however we want. Now, if you go to our Git overlap right here and click this icon with these three dots, where we can see a tooltip with views and more actions, you can see that we have many commands that we can use directly from the interface, which are exactly the same as we can use in the terminal. But there's even more. If you go to View, choose the command palette right here, and type Git, you'll get the whole list of additional commands you can use when working with Git with no problem. Now I want to show you how to clone a repository from GitHub using VSC interface. So let's do this. Let's go to View, Command Palette. Let's type git clone. Let's click it. And now all we need to do is to place URL of a repository we want to clone. I showed already how to get such a URL before, and I will show it again, but now I just want to paste one I prepared earlier. It's a repository with a Pac-Man game. I'll just paste it, press enter, and we will get this window where we should select repository location. Let's just put it on my desktop like this, and you'll get this window with would you like to open the cloned repository or add it to the current workspace. We don't want to add it to this workspace, so let's just open it in new window, and we will get it right here. You can see it's in its original Pac-Man folder right here, which was created on my desktop, and we got the whole repository with all the files in it. So let's check what actually is this. Let's open it with the live server to get it open in the browser. And you can see it's a Pac-Man game, all right. Let's click it. We can play it in our browser. That's actually pretty nice. Now let's open our terminal, because I want to show you that we have the whole repository. It was cloned to our local repository, and it has everything in it with the whole history of changes. Let's type git log with one line, and we have the list of all the commits during every stage of building this project. Let's remember that if we want to leave the list, we should press the Q key on our keyboard. Let's clear our console. We can of course modify it however we want. We can expand it. We can work on it further, but we have to remember that these changes will only be on our local repository on our computer. We are not synchronized with the author's remote repository on GitHub, so the changes will be only on our local machine. Of course, you can give a pull request to the author with your own suggestions to this repository, or if you create your own local repository, you will be able to push it to the remote repository on GitHub, synchronize it, and work on it constantly, but we will get to that, so don't worry. Pull requests are the suggestions that you can give to the author about his repository, about the patches or fixes you made in it, and he can accept it or decline it, put it in his own remote repository or not. But we will talk about all of this later on. Now I want to show you something that you can actually modify this repository on your own. We are at the index.html file right now, and here we can see the script tag from the Google Analytics. We can comment it like this, save the changes just like this. Now we can see that this file has been modified, so we can go to our Git overlap. We can see the settings JSON file, which is related to the live server I used to view this project in the browser just a moment ago. So don't worry about this, but you can see that our index.html file has been modified. So let's add it to the staging area. Let's write a commit message, which would be command Google Analytics. Let's commit these changes, just like this. And now when we check git log, we can see the newest commit is our own commit with the commit message, comment Google Analytics. As I said, we made these changes only to our local repository. The remote repository we cloned remains unchanged. The last thing I wanted to show you is when we go to the extensions overlap right here, when we click it and type git lens. Let's expand it a little bit more to see the icon. And this is the extension I'm talking about. And this is Git Lens, an extension that might improve your work with Git even more. So you can test it if you like it. However, these are rather more advanced things. So if you will work a lot with Git, you will likely come across this extension in the future. Alright, let's not waste time and let's move on.